Hello, and welcome to episode 3. In episode 2, we did the identity interrogation, where you answered a bunch of questions about parts of your identity and how those parts make you feel. If you don't know what I'm talking about, go ahead and go back so you can complete the identity interrogation. If you've already done it, you're right on track, and let's get into it. So as I said in the last video, we're going to be getting into triggers and how the body reacts to these different triggers. Pull the identity interrogation out. And also don't forget to have your emotion wheel out. I'll link it here again so you can screenshot. I'm not about to do it in another video though. I already did it in the last one, so you need to screenshot it this time. But I'll link it somewhere over here. And I want you to read through the list. Read through all of the feelings that you had, the things that you've gone through, the different parts of your identity. And then I want you to think, do any of these different factors make me feel a difficult or uncomfortable emotion? I can't tell you what that emotion would be exactly, only you would know. And the way you identify it or find out is through looking at the emotion wheel.
Look at it! Look at it! Look at it! I want all of you to look at it!
While you look to see if there are parts of the identity interrogation that bring on those feelings, I'm going to explain a little bit deeper how trauma relates to identity. I'm sure you know there's a lot of different forms of trauma. There's relationship trauma, friendship trauma, religious trauma, trauma that we experienced in school or at work. So hypothetically, let's say you were severely bullied in school. You may have some emotional discomfort that you still experience to this day because of what happened to you in school. That would be school-related trauma. And if you look back on the identity interrogation, you would see that school and education is linked there. So this is what I mean when I ask, what trauma have you experienced? So keeping that example, if you went through severe bullying in school, that was traumatic for you because you still feel some of the effects to this day. You may feel difficulty in communicating, insecurity in making and keeping friends, low self-esteem, low self-worth. There are a lot of different factors that go into trauma and how it impacts you, and that's why we're here today, to get into how it impacts the body so that eventually we can talk about how it impacts behavior. And you already know that shame has no place here. So whatever you find with grace. Now that we have that intention set again, I need you to circle the parts in the identity interrogation that cause trauma. Why do we need to put so much emphasis on emotions? I'm trying to get productive. I'm trying to get past certain things. Why do I need to think so heavily on how I feel? Well, that is a great question. So emotions are important because they inform our behavior. So what that means is that our emotions are our guide. Our emotions work to let us know what we need, what we don't need, what we're receiving too much of, not enough of, what we need to adjust. We're often told to push our emotions down, to forget about them, to keep moving, and even sometimes to take the negative emotions we have and use them out of spite so that we can achieve. That's great until you run into burnout. And that's why we're going to be getting into how the body reacts to our emotions. As you know, we've been going through the finding, knowing, grounding, and guiding framework for truly understanding and empowering yourself. And this is all about the knowing your body, knowing what makes you tick, knowing what pisses you off, knowing what makes you happy, knowing what satisfies you. The art of truly knowing yourself. Because when I tell you, if you don't know yourself, you know nothing. So now we're going to be going through the 5 F's. We have fight, flight, fawn, freeze, and fatigue. Let me repeat that. Fight, flight, fawn, freeze, and fatigue. And these are just the reactions that the body has when it's in a state of panic. Also, I forgot, before we get any deeper, this is not therapy. This shouldn't use any therapeutic facet. We are here to learn, to grow, develop, and create community for free. So first, how are some ways that you can know your body is in panic? Could it be your sweaty palms, your sweaty armpits, your sweaty everywhere, your fast heart rate, the tension in your neck and your chest and your back, that lower back pain that just seems to come along when you're super stressed, that tightness or burning in your chest, or even like in your diaphragm right here in that solar plexus. You know exactly what I'm talking about. Pressure and tension all in the muscles and joints. especially when you're stressed and you just want to rest. Those racing thoughts of somehow the past, present, and future, you want to stop, but you just can't. The moments where literally anything can just make you break down into tears, but it's the worst time possible in front of everyone in the most important time. Even that like tightness in your throat, that inability to speak. What? Things feeling like they're going super fast.
Or incredibly, fearfully slow.
Everything around you, terrifying. That deep inner vibration that you feel within yourself, that's just so uncomfortable and it almost feels like you want your skin to rip off. This is what the 5 Fs can look like. Well, I should say feel like, how they can feel in the body. Well, if you've experienced any of this, listen up. First off, I hear you, I see you, and I feel you. And second, please know that the awareness of self, the way you know yourself, can be the tool to so much relief. I'm not saying this identity interrogation in this series is the end all be all, but what I am saying is awareness is a gift. We'll get deeper into how to utilize that gift as we go into the series a little further. The first F, fight. What do you think this means? I'm sorry if that scared y'all. I might edit that out. I might not though. So when we think of the body being in a fight response, think about constantly being on the defense, being war ready, always scoping the scene, thinking 10 steps ahead of what others will say and do so that you have something to defend yourself with. This can look like pointing out everybody's insecurities and, keep it in the back of your mind in case they want to play with you. It could also look like thinking or fantasizing about past, current, or even hypothetical arguments and what you can say to get the upper hand. Because the body is in fight mode, it's difficult to take in information because oftentimes people in fight mode are listening to respond instead of listening to understand. People in fight mode can also be experts at reading a room. They can walk into a room and sense the energy and see the needs of everyone around them. Sometimes people in fight mode can know the needs of others before they even know it themselves. Some professionals call that hypervigilance. Others call it being an observant empath. Okay, so we covered a little bit of the fight reaction in the body. Now let's get into the flight. Before we get into it though, I need to go. Okay, I'm back. It was too overwhelming. The flight response is that it can literally be getting so overwhelmed, so stressed, so anxious, so depressed, whatever it looks like, that you literally need to leave physically. You need to get out. You are shut down and you need to remove yourself. But it can also look like shutting down mentally and emotionally. So what does this look like? People are talking, you hear nothing. The wah, wah, wah. It gets too hard, you create your own fantasy world and now you're there. You're not even here, your body's here, but internally you are panicking so deeply. But imagine how that may come off to other people. You may be seen as emotionally unavailable, inconsistent, really moody, or just so distant that they can't quite reach you, understand you, see you, feel you. It's almost as if so much of people's trauma is not their fault. Almost as if we would be able to grow so much as people if we just understood who we were so that we can work to understand our triggers so that we won't have to deal with constant conflict. That would be crazy. If only there was someone who was like so deeply invested in conflict, who could create a platform for free to help people understand how truly empowered they are and how they do have all the answers if they just get to know themselves. Anyways, then we get into fawn. So fawning is a little more complex, but what it looks like is